Welcome to the Figure Fit Lifestyle Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Liz Nierzwicki, international best-selling author of the book Happy, Healthy, Fit, founder and owner of Solace Yoga Studio, Solace Yoga School, and Figure Fit, the worldwide online personal training program. I'm a single mom, Paleo Fit Score female champion for 2014. I am a self and soul love expert, entrepreneur at heart, a visionary and a futurist. I'm also a mentor. I am so grateful that you are here. Each week, I'll bring you a special guest or an inspirational tip that will help you break old patterns, find that inner motivation that will help you take action towards creating the life of your dreams. You didn't come here to play small and watch others live amazing lives. No, you are divine, my godly friend. The universe wants to shower you with an amazing life filled with happiness and soulful connections. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Figure Fit Podcast, where we discuss fitness, paleo nutrition, yoga, meditation, spirituality, and other ways to have a happy, peaceful, and abundant life. And here's your host, Liz Nierzwicki.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. I am so excited for you to hear this show today. You guys, it was surprisingly amazing for both me and my guest. It's so fun when you just start talking to somebody and you really have no idea where it's going to go. Well, I don't think that my guest today, Jim Klapman, really knew just how spiritual and philosophical and metaphysical I am. And when he started to talk about his product called Slackbow, which helps people with balance, and I started to ask him a little bit more about why are you doing this and, where did it initially come from? And then he got into how he had some brain trauma and damage when he was a child, and it caused him to have ADD. And therefore, his balancing and his focusing helped him. So he really got into this deep practice of working with focus and balance, and how the balancing, just like, when you're doing, for me, like in the yoga studio, we're doing balance poses. We're really just focusing on, ankle mobility and grounding and extension. Well, for Jim, it's a whole new level. It's really working with the senses and our entire autonomic nervous system. So we talk about that today in the podcast, and we really get into just how our autonomic nervous system is, it's the automatic system. Everything's happening in our subconscious, and our consciousness isn't even aware of all the stuff that's happening. So we really got into a deep conversation today, you guys, and I cannot wait for you to hear this show. Okay, guys, so a little bit about my guest today. His name is Jim Klapman. He is a lifelong innovator who has always been one of those people who thinks differently. He believes balance training has sharpened his ability to make new neural connections and see the possibilities and pathways that others might miss. Originally, Jim was looking for a way to maintain his own athletic performance back in the 90s, but the Slackbow balance training system that he developed turned out to be a key to a whole new body and mind fitness regimen that was even more revolutionary than he could ever have imagined. So he's super eager to spread his knowledge, his techniques, and his tools far and wide to help seekers like him tune their brains to perform better in work, in sports, in sleep, looking younger, living longer. And, we talk a little bit about yoga and cross-training and fitness and high-powered athletes, but that's kind of like the surface, you guys. Today's conversation is just fantastic, and I really think you're just going to love it. So I kindly ask you to really just tune in and maybe bring to both of us some of your questions about consciousness and subconscious and reprogramming and any sort of cross-training fitness questions that you might have. But, for both Jim and myself, creating new neural connections is the way to really transform your life, your habits, your patterns, and the way that you really live your life. So let me talk to you a little bit about that and what this means. When you're creating new neural connections in your brain, you're creating new synapses. Now, if you are, this is the best example that I have. If you're somebody who is like quick to anger, that is an automatic response that you have built so deep in your system that your body is so used to doing it. It's actually your cells push it up. It's like a push up method. And your cells actually kind of crave it sometimes and make you anxious for some sort of this quick fix that these cells are getting or that they're missing that they need. And so those are called like these little locking keys that you send these peptides down to the cells from your brain, and the cells have little docking stations to receive those peptides that you've been feeding those cells all along. Now, the way that we create new neural connections is by giving our cells new information. And the way that we do that in a way that is so powerful, in a way that maybe life is not giving you the opportunity to make new neural connections, well, there's a trick. How do we do it? We do it with visualization. We do it with meditation. And you guys, the thing about it is we can't be lazy with this stuff. If we really truly want to make change, we have to put in the effort. And we have to feel like we got to be willing to look stupid to our own selves. Or if you're married, look stupid in front of your spouse or look stupid in front of your partner and be like, oh, well, I'm creating new neural connections. Do you want me to be happy? Well, this is what I'm doing for myself and for everybody around me. One of the times I first heard about this with Tony Robbins, and he was like, get into that car that you want. Get into it. Sit in a room and scream and yell and be excited that it's yours, and get the feeling going inside of you. Get your brain releasing those chemicals and those peptides. And your brain and your body doesn't know it any other way. So we can't be lazy with this stuff. When we want to create new neural connections, we have to do the work. This is some of the high-end coaching stuff that I work with people on, is kind of uprooting some of their bad triggers and reprogramming them. This is high-end coaching, high-end work that takes time, and it takes somebody who knows what they're doing and that can work with you and help you and guide you and love you along the way and help you when you are beating up on yourself and helping you to find compassion and self-love. So if this is something that you're interested in, please reach out to me. This is called my Human Transcendence High-End Coaching Program. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear this podcast today. So without further ado, here is the special guest today, Jim Klopman. Jim, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm so happy to have you and get talking about what you have going on in this crazy world we're living in.
Yeah, I am too. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. So why don't you just give my listeners a brief snippet about who you are and what you do?
I developed a balance system. We call it Slackbow balance training for athletes. And what we do is we train athletes to improve their balance. And just by improving their balance, they get better at their sport. We've written a book called Balance is Power. We have several products, some of them patented. We have processes and methods that are really unique, and we think that we've discovered unique things about balance the rest of the world doesn't know. And we're just trying to get the word out there and let people know that your balance can be improved, and when you do, it makes you think better, it makes you feel better, and it also helps you perform better in your sport, no matter what the sport is.
I like that. So many things you just said that I can't wait to dive into. So first, tell me about your book, Balance is Power.
Well, I wrote it out of frustration because I kept getting sort of crazy looks from people in the fitness industry when I told them it's really about building better muscles, not bigger muscles. And, I said, well, it's all about how you improve your balance. And everybody goes, yeah, well, we do balance training. And to which I say 99.9% of the people out there that do balance training don't do it correctly and don't do it in a way that improves your athletic performance. So in the book, we go through the 4 major reasons that you lose your balance and why balance degrades over time and how you can recover from it. And then we go through the 6 or 7 different types of sports or what we call athletic movements, and how balance improves each of those athletic movements. And then at the end of the book, we give you some examples of our style of and methods of balance training.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, as a yoga teacher, I'm very interested in learning more about what you know that 99% of the world doesn't know. So I also like what you said about earlier, so I'm ready to dive into these too, is that helps you with your mind, thinking, and your athletic abilities. So why don't you just tell us a little bit more about what you've discovered?
Well, I kept it a secret for years, but now I'm just blabbing it to everybody. One of the key elements is that we feel pretty confidently that the balance system is part of the autonomic nervous system. And this is not really considered as such when you look at the medical research or anybody that talks about the ANS. They don't ever talk about the balance system. And by the way, I call it the balance system because it's really a system of 5 or 6 separate systems that help you stand upright and move and keep you from falling. It's not just proprioceptive and it's just not vestibular. But when I say it's part of the ANS, the ANS is meant to be automatic and protective. Well, nobody consciously balances it. You do it without any effort at all. And secondarily, falling is painful, so I consider it to be protective. But it has incredible control over the body. So you cannot run and cut any faster than your balance system allows, because if you try to run and cut faster than your balance system allows, regardless of how strong you are or how skilled you are in the mechanics of cutting, you're going to stumble or fall. Your body will automatically throttle your speed back to your limit. As soon as we raise that balance limit, suddenly you can cut and turn much faster. And this is true with any sport. You can hit better, you can hit a tennis ball better, a golf ball better, you ski faster, you do better in what you do in terms of yoga and the balance challenges you have there. And anything you do, you will get better just by improving your balance.
I'm actually taking notes on this because I'm like sitting here thinking about, this is so cool. I've just never thought about it. I've never thought about this.
Right.
Well,
thank you for saying that. Most people say I'm crazy, so at least you're thinking about it. I appreciate that.
Well, I'm a geek. I'm an athletic geek. And I have, I have a yoga school, so I teach yoga poses, right. And I teach balance myself, and I teach grounding and extension. Right. And with my fitness program, you're sitting there saying that, you're not going to be able to cut better if you don't, what I'm hearing is specifically train this system in a way that right. needs to be trained. And so right. like for me with my Figure Fit program, it's completely different. It's a total cross-training system right. for anybody. And it works the anaerobic and the glycolytic system. So right. it makes those two systems faster, stronger, more powerful. So right. I see the science behind what you're saying. And, cool. There's always a way to confuse people and then also right. speak the science that helps them to kind of get it. Right. So I would love to dive into more about the science behind what you've discovered, because I get that as you train something like this, specifically, everything else is going to get better as well. That's just right. how the right. body works. Right,
right. Well, one of the things that we discuss a lot, and this is something that, again, most people look at me like this is crazy, but how do you argue with it? The very best athletes have these components to them. Oftentimes, they're not the big muscular guys on the court or on the field, or gals. Number two, the very best athletes have the best aim. They're the best shooters on the court, so to speak. They also have this other component that most people don't tie the two together, is they have the very best field vision. So they see more of what's going on around them. They almost have a sixth sense in terms of where the ball is and where they are and where their opponents are and where their teammates are. We have found that vision is a key component to learning how to improve your athletic balance. Now, a lot of people will train with their eyes closed. To that, our response is, great if you want to be a well-balanced blind person, but just trying to turn off one of your major sensors that help you balance and move through a sport is just kind of stupid. Secondarily, what we've discovered, and we have some science behind this that we keep in our back pocket, we don't really readily talk about it, But 90% of the data that comes into your eyes comes into your brain subconsciously. It's not something that goes through your conscious system. So you can never really fully test this peripheral vision because the data isn't going to your conscious mind where you can react to it. It's going straight to your athletic brain. So when we teach people how to balance, we also incorporate and teach them how to utilize this peripheral vision. Now, how does that relate to what you do? I mean, I don't know everything you do, but when you talk about yoga, and I may mispronounce this word. I feel like I'm spitting every time I say it, but is it the drishti point? Is that how you say it?
Drishti.
Yeah, drishti point. So when you are doing the tree pose and you're doing these balance poses in yoga and they have you look at a spot, that actually is debilitating to your balance and decoordinating your body. When you have the ability to look at the spot and see all the spaces around the spot, including the floor, ceiling, and walls and everything else outside of your peripheral vision, and that's just a feeling, it's not something you see, your balance improves dramatically. And I love this when I get yoga people that come see me and, oh, yeah, I'm looking at a spot that's helping my balance. We take them off the line or whatever they're doing, and we have a little physical demonstration, and we show them how looking at the spot will actually make them less coordinated. And when they learn how to use that broad peripheral vision, they're better coordinated and have better balance.
Oh, boy. You just rocked my world. I'm totally okay with that. I'm going to have to try it. One of the things when we are doing tree pose with my clients, and I'll ask them to find their drishti and focus on it. And then I, as the teacher, will look around at people and hold my balance. And it's a sensuation. I want to say sensual, but I don't think it's the word I'm looking for. It's a sensation thing with my body. That I can ground in my body and feel more than it be a sight thing.
Right. Well, what happens is when you go to this place of having this broad vision, and some of it we activate, basically without even you seeing it. It puts you more into your body, and you feel more from that standpoint, and you get out of your conscious mind. We also demonstrate that when you look at that drishti point and you look at that little tiny spot, you can have an overactive conscious mind. As soon as you go to this broad vision and you more activate that sense along with the other senses, and we teach people that as well. Not only should you have broad vision and see everything you possibly can, but feel everything you can. Feel the clothes against your skin. If there's any air blowing around the room, feel that against your skin. If you have a taste in your mouth, taste it. We find that people, when they balance, put their tongue in a certain place, and we think the tongue is a major sensor, and there's research that demonstrates that somehow the tongue has something to do with the balance system. They don't know how or why. We feel the hands are a big part of it. We want you to feel the pressures on the bottom of your feet. We want you to sense everything you can on your body all at one time. And when you turn on all these senses, guess what? And you're doing it right now as I'm talking to you. I know your conscious mind shuts off. And when your conscious mind shuts off, you're allowing that athletic brain to operate. You can never have the athletic brain operating while you've got some conscious thought going on. And the best way to activate that subconscious mind and turn off that conscious mind is to activate your senses maximally as much as you possibly can.
That makes a lot of sense to me, actually. There's so much we don't know about the body and how it works.
Oh, my God. I'm so glad you said that. I get this all the time. I purposely stayed away from fitness training or learning the Latin name of all the muscles and then really not knowing what the heck's going on. There's 40,000 neuroscience researchers in the world right now, and about half of them, 20,000 of them, are researching the brain-body interaction. So anybody who says they know what's going on doesn't know what's going on, because there wouldn't be this many people studying if it was, a hammered science and we all knew exactly what was happening.
Yeah, definitely. So the autonomic nervous system, can you go into that a little bit more specifically to give just people this idea of exactly what that is?
The ANS is a system of automatic processes that your body does to protect itself. So your heart rate you don't have to think about your heart rate, but you can slow it down, you can speed it up. Your breathing's automatic. They even say things such as, if you were to stick your hand under hot water, you snatch it back. That's an automatic response. It's automatic and it's protective. There are certain things about the ANS that are still ancient. Wim Hof, I think, does a good job of explaining how these ancient systems are not really useful today. One of them is, I'm getting into the weeds here, but one of them is just, getting cold and you have this panic that you need to get out of the cold. Nowadays, you don't have to worry about that because it only takes, anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours to get out of the cold. But, 10,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago to get out of the cold may take you 24 hours. So you really had to respond to it differently. But the ANS is automatic and it's protective. Now, the interesting thing about the balance system is I can slow my heart rate down. I can speed it up. I can even change the blood flow. And there's research that's proven that. You can't consciously affect your balance system. You can't make it better or worse just by thinking about it. It controls you. It is the most massive neurally controlling system on your body. It's right up there, I think, even greater than that of something like blood flow, because it uses, when you're just standing, you're supposedly using up to 700 muscles just holding still. So you're in a constant state of motion, even though you're standing on 2 feet and you think you're standing still. And that's why standing is so tiring. And when you want to relax, you lean against the wall. And as soon as you lean against the wall, you do what I call is tripoding or three-pointing. At that point, you no longer need your balance system. And that's why takes less effort than just standing. So this system is automatic. You can't trick it. You cannot overcome it. It will control you more than any other part of the ANS.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. So would you be willing to go in? I know you talk about this in your book, the 4 reasons we begin to lose balance.
Yeah. And none of these are scientifically proven. These are all theories, but listen to them, and if they make sense to you, you'll understand it. One is the spaces that we live and operate in. The modern world is really made for people who have some sort of mobility problem, whether they're with using a cane or a walker. So we build this virtually balanced, challenge-free environment. The floors are perfectly flat. The walls are perfectly vertical. Every step is perfectly measured and exactly the same. And if you walk around, what I love is I walk around cities. I live in an extremely athletic city here, and there's hundreds of miles of trails. But if you walk down the sidewalk, in even the neighborhoods around this town, and there's a little 1/4-inch raise in a crack in the sidewalk, there's a crew out there, grinding it down because God forbid you trip over a crack. Mm-hmm. So what happens is the whole balance system gets detuned. I have this index I created called the KBI, and it's 0 to 100, 50 being average, 80 being a pretty high functioning athlete, 90 being the very top pro athletes, and 100 being a Cirque du Soleil performer. On the other end of the scale, 20 is what we consider somebody who needs a cane or a walker to get around. Now, we have this world that's built for level 20 balance challenges, and we're taking our balance system and detuning it down to that level. So it's just like if you were to get strong, you wouldn't lift 5 pounds every day. You'd lift 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds. Well, we're just walking around basically using our 5-pound level of our balance system. And then one day we have a little balance challenge, let's say a 50, 60, 70 challenge, and we stumble. We may not fall, but one day we will fall. And the numbers on falls are just astronomically bad, and they continue to go up, yet it's something we don't talk about because when you lose your balance, it's a hidden loss. And 90% of the people I've worked with come in to see me, they don't know how good their balance is or how bad their balance is. And a lot of times it's a lot worse than what they think it is.
Wow. That's interesting. So how do you test that? It's through the Slackline? Is it a Slackline?
Yeah, we have a device called a Slackbow. It's a patented device. It's developed off the Slackline. It's infinitely adjustable. We don't walk on it. We do positional work on it. We do the 12-minute routine, which looks like we're going to get a patent on that, which is a series of standing and positioning exercises that you do on the line, and then there's added components done to it. One of the issues with the KBI now is probably me and one other person in the world that really knows how to generate those numbers for somebody. But I look at somebody and I look at their movement patterns when they first get up on the line, if they can get up on the line. Some people can't even get up on line, which, puts them further down the KBI. But they'll get up there and we look for certain movement patterns of how their legs are moving, how the rest of their bodies are moving to give a number to where they are. And what happens, example of this, why it's a little different than other balance indexes is I had a pretty high performing slope style skiing performance skier come in, and he had a concussion, and we work with people who've had concussions because we help them recover from post-concussive syndrome where other things don't help them. And his mother said, well, gee, the physical therapist said that his balance is okay. So he got up, and he was about a 40, 50 in terms of being on the KBI. And I said, yeah, that's good balance for operating in the day-to-day world. But he's a slope style skier. He's riding rails and doing inverted flips, front, back, and sideways, all different things. And I said, he needs to be up around an 80 to get back onto the slope. And she understood that, and we worked with him. And not only did his symptoms go away, but, he got much better at his sport. But the point is, most balance indexes sort of take you out of the physical therapy realm. None of them really take you up into the very high-functioning athletic realm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense to me. I see a lot of people who have gone through, physical therapy. And I don't want to bash it at all because it's definitely needed.
Right.
Just the medical community itself only pays for that. And insurance pays for that. And there's so much more that needs to be done for people outside of just that. And then they get sent on their way. The medical community massively needs to be changed. Services like yoga, any sort of fitness programs that are helping people, they need to be, if the insurance community is going to cover some, it should cover all.
Agreed.
There's just a lot that the old school medical community is just stuck and it's not changing, but people have so much faith in it that that's the way it needs to be. But look at our society. Look what keeps happening. People get injured and re-injured because they're just not going past that point. Right.
I think maybe you and I might do better if we wore really pretty white doctor lab coats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's really frustrating because a lot of times I know more about the body, like really, truthfully, nutrition-wise, how the body works than my own physician because he knows medicine. And yet he makes tons of money, has a huge house, and what do I get? I'm like, this is just, there's something not right about this whole thing. So rant over.
No, I love it. I really did.
It is true. It's very true. And, that's why I do what I do, because I want to share real truth with the world. And that's my goal.
Right. Agreed. And I'm glad you do. I'm glad you have happy in your formula, to be honest with you, because I think that that's important component of what we do. And I know you see it. So many people come out of the gym and they're just like, they go, man, my trainer kicked my ass. I feel like shit. Well, that's really, I didn't think you were supposed to feel like that after you worked out. I thought you were supposed to feel good and feel revitalized and ready to go on, take the day, not just go, ugh, I feel like crap. So I think that's a really important part of any fitness work is that makes you feel better afterwards, not worse.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, granted, some of my figure fit people leave me going, I hate you. I had a girl the other day. I was like doing a fourth round of shoulders, and I turned around and she was staring at me. I swear I had daggers in the back of my head when I turned around, and I looked at her. I go, look at you. I go, my head's burning right now.
Got a hole there, right?
She goes at the end of it, she goes, I love you again. I was like, okay, good. Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, I mean, for me, the happy is all about our mindset, and really mindset is so much. So speaking about that, as a meditation teacher and helping people with their consciousness, keeping their consciousness focused.
Right.
Let's talk about that, because you mentioned that early on, and that was one of the things I wrote down that I would love to learn more about. How does this help you with your consciousness and your thinking?
Well, I mean, a couple of ways. I mean, there's research that supports this, but nobody ever said I need to spend more time in the office. They're like, we need to get out of the office. And typically what people will do to go have fun is they'll do something to challenge their balance. So ride a motorcycle, go hike in nature, go to amusement park, ski, play a sport, baseball, tennis, whatever. All these things challenge your balance. If you don't think it's something that's enjoyable, take a 1-year-old child. I mean, you have a child, just flip that child upside down and see what happens. They laugh, they giggle, they love to have their balance challenged. And so do we as adults. And we find it helps to sort of integrate and clear our brain. They've done research where they would take people and they'd have them run in a cityscape and they would measure brain chemicals, and then they'd run in nature and they find out they produce chemicals that are close to that of like an antidepressant when they run in nature, and you don't get the same effect when you run in a cityscape. So these are things that we do to make ourselves feel better. Kids nowadays, you're probably too young to remember this, but when I was a kid, we always had time where we could go outside and play in the jungle gym and wrestle and do all sorts of things outside. We're not allowed to do that in school now, and there's less PE, and the PE has become so sanitized that it's kind of just like not even full movement patterns that you're allowed to go into. Well, they've shown that just by letting these kids do these things like we used to do, that they end up getting better grades, and there's less ADD and less desire to have all this less of a need to have all this frenetic type of movement. So when you challenge your balance, it just makes you feel better. There's also little bits of research out there that show by challenging your balance, you start to activate that subconscious mind and turn off the conscious mind. Secondly, when we train people, it's amazing what it's not just, I hate to say it's just the brain, it's your whole neurology, it's your brain, and your whole nervous system gets sort of lit up into an automatic mode, and that conscious mind shuts off. So it's when we take someone to a maximal balance challenge, their maximal balance challenge, they're using everything they got. And as soon as I say to them, hey, you're doing a good job, their conscious mind flicks on for just a second and they'll lose their balance within 2 to 3 seconds afterwards. As soon as somebody gives us an ego statement of, oh, I've never stayed up this long, or I've never done this long, I look at them and like 2 to 3 seconds later, they have to step off because they've lost their balance. Or we'll leave the room sometimes and walk out of the room while they're doing their balance challenges. And I hear from the other room, hey, I just stayed up here longer than I ever have, because me being removed from the room means that their judgment, they're not being judged in their mind, and that allows them to be even freer to use their subconscious, active physical mind and not their conscious mind. And then we will add other neural challenges to people when they're training just to do that same sort of thing, to get them out of their head. And I have a guy now who's a meditation, he's on his way to being a Buddhist monk, and he's a meditation teacher, and he says, yeah, this is exactly what I feel when I'm meditating and I'm teaching people how to meditate.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's focus. There's extreme focus in that, and
right.
That's what gets you to that place of meditation, is that focused concentration.
Right. But it can't be a conscious thing. Yeah, focus. And I'll see people trying to consciously move parts of their body. I'm like, leave it alone. Don't worry. Your body will find the right place. And they start trying to move their foot this way, that way, trying to do things consciously. And we give a little bit instruction. But 90% of what we do, honestly, is just letting the body make the decision. And when the body starts to make its own decisions, and it is forced to make its own decisions, because when you take someone to a maximal balance, they can't consciously control anything. It's so remarkable that we can't even have clients work in front of a mirror. By the time they see the data from the mirror that gets back to their conscious mind, it will no longer be viable information, and they cannot use that information, and they don't balance as well.
Wow. It all makes a lot of sense to me. So, you have like a studio type where you do this?
Yeah, we've had a couple of studios here in Park City, and we've shut them down just because we haven't had the numbers in this little town. But now we operate and we share space in Park City, Utah, and we travel. People buy our products all over the country, and we certify gyms and things like that. So we do it. We do it all, I guess I should say.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so I would love to talk to you about that gym certification process because I want to do that with Figure Fit. Yeah, off air.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, no problem. We got plenty of time.
Yeah. So, where are you in your personal journey with this? Really, what was your catalyst to make you even want to do this?
Oh God. Oh.
I'm getting personal.
Yeah. Geez, it's such a long, convoluted story, but the short version is when I was 50, I skied with Stein Eriksen, who's, my wife at the time gave me a day with him, and it was one of the greatest birthdays I've ever had in my life. This guy was 75 at the time, and he was the first sort of famous popular skier, extreme skier, trick skier, plus a great Olympian and world champion. And, I was wondering how he skied well into his 70s, and he's a lovely man. He's now passed away, but we talked a lot about how to ski well into your 70s, 80s, and 90s. And after that day, I've always been an athlete, and I just decided, I want to be athletic into my 70s, 80s, and 90s. And what is it that will get me there? And I started thinking about it. You're in the fitness space, and people like you have just pushed fitness to its max. I mean, it's amazing how fit people are. I'm now 65, and I'm perfectly proud to take off my shirt. And I think that I'm fitter than anybody else my age, but all I do is balance train. But my point is, fitness today is so good that it wasn't fitness that made us better skiers, okay? Because we all were in great shape. So what else was it? Was it a loss of skill? No, it wasn't a loss of skill, because the more you do something, the better you should get at it. So I started thinking, why do athletes age out? And apparently I'm finding out in pro sports, this is a big issue. But, why would a baseball player start to lose an MLB player start to lose his skills in his 30s? He's just as strong as he was in his 30s when he was 25. And the more times you're at bat, the better you should get, not worse. So what was the component? And I believe the component is losing balance. So I decided to go out in the industry, the fitness industry, and see what was out there, and there was nothing out there. So I said, okay, I'll develop my own system. I started developing my own methods, my own systems. I went out and I skied incredibly better that year, and I was just shocked. I didn't think I could get that much better. And I exposed it to other athletes, and every athlete I exposed it to ended up getting better in their sport. And we did a little research on it, and it's just, one thing turned to another, and it took us down this rabbit hole of stuff about the balance system. And it turns out it's a huge component to brain health. I found out I've had lifelong ADD and dyslexia, and I found out about a year or two after I started this, that I have fairly extensive brain damage, and maybe the causes of my ADD and dyslexia. But I also found out that the cerebellum, the center of your balance in your brain, had a lot of destruction to it. And, it's funny, when I was being evaluated, the doctors said to me, well, you need the balance train. I said, no, I don't. And they said, yes, you do. And I said, no, we went back and forth. I'm like, no, I balance all the time. There's nobody in the country that has balance as good as I do at my age. And I understood why at that point in time, why I really love to ski at 60 miles an hour ever since I was a kid, why I love to do crazy things that were so engaging of my whole body. That's why I loved athletics, is because if you engage every active part of your body, for me, my brain quiets down. Mm-hmm. And that all sort of came together, that the reason I had such an attraction to sports, the reason I had such an attraction to this, the reason why I wanted to do this, was all of this calmed my brain down. And I figured when I was in my 70s and 80s, if I couldn't do something like skiing or some other aggressive sport, that I just couldn't sit there with my brain. I'd go crazy. I have to do something. Mm-hmm. So it sort of all grew into that. And once I found out it helped these other athletes, I thought, well, this is a message that needs to get out there. And then it even got bigger still. There's, I don't know if I'm sure you know this, is that the number one cause of accidental death for people over the age of 65 are falls. The number one cause of injury for people over 65 are falls. But here's the crazy thing about that number is over the last 15 years, that number's nearly doubled. Everything else in terms of better health nowadays has been going, in terms of deaths from cancer, heart disease, et cetera, because of the better medical care and better fitness. And I know we're an overweight country, but still better diets. All those things are going down in terms of the deaths from these particular diseases, except for falls. It's nearly doubled. And one of the problems is that the federal government doesn't call it a disease. They call them accidents. It really is a balance loss disease, and it can be recovered and it can be changed. So this whole thing sort of became, a mission for me, but it certainly had mission creep. It didn't start out exactly like where I am right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that all makes so much sense. You know what? Honestly, I have to say, there's a phrase in entrepreneur land there where they say, in your authenticity, that's where people connect to you. And just by your story, everything you said before made so much sense, so much more sense.
Well, thank you.
It does. It just makes it's so needed to really hear, because to me it all, it just ties it all together. But also the science backs it up too. You can give people the numbers and the data and the science and be like, yes, do this. But knowing your story, because I too had, when I was younger, I had obsessive compulsive. So I was like, why? What was that all about?
Right.
And I studied psychology in college. And, even as an adult, I'm still very obsessive in my thinking.
Right.
It's just I don't have an OCD obsessive compulsive disorder like I once did. I just broke that in terms of, good luck and bad luck. And, like Howie Mandel, a lot of people know that he's got a really, really strong obsessive compulsive disorder. And it's big, it's powerful. And so whatever we can do to help us and to not have those, because they can be debilitating. They can really affect your quality of life, your peace of mind.
Right. Well, you seem to, I think people who went out over OCD make this one determination. And of course, the biggest issue in psychology is OCD is a brain-based condition, but the mind, and nobody knows where the mind is or where it comes from. The mind can make decisions to change OCD behavior just by changing how the brain operates. Mm-hmm. So this force, this thing that most people don't acknowledge that they have, that's outside of their brain, can say to the brain, hey, brain, I don't like this OCD. Let's kind of rewire things. And the brain can actually rewire itself just based on the mind, whatever that is. Again, this thing outside ourselves decides to make a decision that this is what you want now.
Oh, I love what you just said. And I need to talk about that real quick, because I am a spiritual teacher and this is a joint spiritual podcast. Maybe not this one per se, but my podcast is. And it's absolutely something that I teach. Now, I call it the soul. Some people call it spirit. I actually interchange it. Sometimes I say it's spirit, soul. But I was reading this book last summer, and I forget which one it was. It might have been Ramtha, or The Big White Book. And in that book, the author is talking about the mind and how the mind is not us. It is a part of us. Like in yoga and meditation, you can, and even every person listening can go, okay, I can see myself thinking. I can, know that I'm the witness of my thoughts. And so then who am I, right? I'm the conscious space in between thoughts. And also, I love the Rumi quote, there's a voice that does not use words. Right. And there is, in this book, which I thought was so cool, it says that the mind isn't in you, it's everywhere. It's in between every single cell that you have. Right. It's in between me and you, and even in the distance that we have between us from Indiana to Park City.
It's a connection.
Yeah, there's this vibrational force that is always working. And I kind of like to say that that's what our mind is, and that's why we are one with everyone and everything. Right. We're totally interconnected.
I agree with that completely. And I can, I'm so glad you got this. now we're going into the weird, but I love the weird anyways. But I believe even, I, to a certain extent, can improve the performance of my clients just by my level of presence when I'm working with them. And I see this, and it's clear that if I decide if I decide they should do better on the line, just whatever I decide to think at that point in time seems to help them. And just whatever that connection that we have will cause them to perform better. When you talk about the mind, it's comes out of the area of neuroplasticity where the brain can rewire itself. And nowadays, if somebody has a stroke and let's say their left side is paralyzed, in the old days, they'd say, well, that side's gone. You have to learn how to use your right side. Nowadays, even with children, they'll basically incapacitate the right side, the side that's still working. And let's say to get you to pick up a coffee cup, they'll just set your hand on the table and say, pick up that cup. And you're like, well, I can't. My hand doesn't move. Okay, tomorrow, put the hand down on the table, pick up that coffee cup. I can't. My hand doesn't move. Some point along the cycle, the hand twitches and then it moves. And before you know it picks up the cup. So what's happened there is the mind, this outside thing, has told the brain to rewire itself, that we're going to take the activity that used to control that arm, that part of the brain's dead. We're going to change those activities to some other part of the mind. Now, for me, when I had the diagnosis with the brain damage, it cleared up, 50 years of me trying to figure out what the hell's wrong with me. And I have, the brain damage scans showed that I had pretty extreme post-traumatic stress. I didn't know that because I've lived with it my whole life. Mm-hmm. Now, when I wake up in the middle of the night and I feel like I've had a bolt of lightning go through me and I want to jump up and go to war or whatever the case may be, I'll go, that's not me. That's just a wiring problem. I'm going to correct that, and I'm going to rewire. And just by making those decisions, it's helped. And I understand in the OCD world that that's what they're doing now to have effectively help people with OCD. They're going, you have an OCD event, you don't blame yourself and tell you're some sort of psychological fool and that, you got everything, your mother was bad to you, your father was bad to you, whatever the heck it is. You just go, no, that's a wiring problem. And I'm going to start to rewire it. And this even helps people who have OCD to start to rewire their brain to get off of those OCD patterns.
Wow. Wow, we just totally took an amazing turn. I love it. Totally an amazing turn. It's so important. Like, our mind is literally everything. I just did a live on Facebook about this the other day, that it's everything. It's everything. It's everything. It's everything. I mean,
it is.
I teach body, and but that is so superficial to me. Right. And that if that's where you're stuck, that's the easy part. That is the easy part. And I was talking to my son about it. He's 14, by the way. So when you said flip him around, I was like, he can flip me around.
Too big
now.
for that. Yeah,
right. But I was talking to him about this the other day, about the body. And, I said, I love my body. And he laughed at me. And I said, I am so ready to speak this message because there was a point in time where I didn't, where I hated my body, where I cursed myself in my closet and told myself all these negative things about my body because I was fat and I couldn't button my pants. And I literally did not like my body. And there's so many people in the world that are doing that. And it's awful. It's sad. It doesn't need to be that way. And I one day made a decision to walk out of my closet and never again have that moment in my life, and started just putting in a consistent effort towards my workouts. And this little by little, domino after domino, I got better at this thing. I got better at that thing. I started to become aware of my habits. I started to become aware of my consciousness, of my self-sabotaging, and then what was behind the self-sabotaging. And that was all mindset. That was all, automatic things that were happening in my body that I had to get conscious around and change them.
Right.
And so, I said to my son, I go, people can say that they love their marriages and they want to scream that from the rooftop. I said, great. I should be able to be like, I love my body. And that should be perfectly accepted.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
And it's the same thing about, I was like laughing about like a well manicured lawn, you know, that looks really good. It just got mowed. It's weed whacked nicely. It's edged. It looks great. And you're proud of it. Like you can be proud of your lawn, but you can't be proud of your body.
Right.
No way.
Right.
This is our holy home that
Right.
we live
Right.
in, and we should be totally proud of it. So
Right.
another tangent.
No, and you know, to me, they're one and the same. It's like people go, well, when they talk to me about balancing, oh, my brain this, my brain that, and I go, well, yeah, but what you don't know is you have brain tissue. It's just recently discovered in the last 6 months, or released in the last 6 months. Brain tissue in your lower spine that takes data from the bottom of your feet, moves it up to your back, moves it up to this brain-like tissue around your lower spine, and then takes that data and sends it back and information on how to move parts of your lower extremities. So the information doesn't even go to your brain. So there's brain tissue behind your heart. You know, when you have a feeling in your heart, that is brain tissue. You have brain-type tissue in your stomach. So, you know, it's really one system. I know the brain is the big processor, but you have little processing systems all over the body as well. So when you feel something really good in the pit of your stomach, it's brain tissue activating. If you feel a connection or a warm feeling through your heart for someone, it's brain tissue that's operating. So you have this little bit of brain tissue all over the body, and I think there's more yet to be found, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow. I agree. That's actually really interesting. Do you talk about that in your book too?
No.
That's book 2. Literally. Or that's some other system of coaching. Really, truly, I think, you know, like the more you can get into the true science, and I'm sorry, I'm probably overwhelming you. I'm overwhelming myself.
No, I love it. Keep it going.
Because
it's
like,
not often I can have this kind of conversation with someone, so I enjoy it. Were we talking about balance? I don't remember, but no, go.
Right? I was just thinking about how you never know, like, what kind of turn my podcasts are going to go on to. And I think that's why my listeners love them so much, because it's like, it's always something that is like, oh, you think you're going to be talking about, like, you know, balance today or
right.
this, and then all of a sudden it's like some deep, amazing conversation, which is awesome.
Exactly. It is.
Well, I think that, you know, there's just so much more to what you're doing. So my thing in a nutshell is, you guys, it all starts with the body. It really does. This is our tangible system that we get to play with every single day. And we should be. We absolutely should be playing with our body, challenging it, moving it in different directions. And like you said, flipping it upside down is one great way to do that. We do that in yoga with inversions and handstands and headstands. And there's a saying in yoga that when life doesn't make sense, go upside down. It just kind of has a way of putting things in a different perspective, you know, changing your mindset. Right. And, you know, if anything is not going right in your life, it has to start somewhere. And it's usually typically movement. It's action. Right. It's taking a new action and getting some really clear, focused consciousness around what you're doing with your body, what you're eating, what you're thinking. And from there, it can all kind of fall in to, you know, at least being some sort of process of understanding. I actually looked up a couple months ago, like the hierarchy of needs, you know.
Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah. And because I was thinking of my own, I was like, I need to look at this. I need to see if this is really real in comparison to how I philosophically live my life. Like, is this real for me? And there was a lot of it that is. And then I had my own, you know, little things that I added to it, you know, such as like, you know, body, absolutely. Consciousness is key. It's everything. Consciousness is one of my like foundational, it's at the bottom. Like his is survival. His is security and survival, which is totally true. But consciousness, once you get your head around that and the power and the that your consciousness holds and your subconsciousness, oh man, that's where the work is.
Well, and I think even, security and, when you're faced with those challenges of security and survival, you do reach very deep levels of, consciousness at that point in time. You have you face the world differently at that point in time, and everybody goes through this. If you've ever been faced with those situations, you realize what's important and what's not important. When you're in those situations, you do have a totally activated body. I find that whenever I've been in life-threatening situations, I go to the state of Zen calmness that I can't believe. And afterwards, people will come up to me. If I stopped a car rolling down the streets of Boston one time because the guy left his brake off, and it was in Cambridge, and I hopped in the car and put on the brake, and people came up to me and started talking to me like it was some amazing thing, and I was like, no, it was just something I did. Or a guy fell on a subway track when I was a kid, and I went down onto the track and picked him up and put him on the platform, and this guy came up and he said, "Oh, I'm from the Daily News. I want to write an article about that." I said, "Why? I mean, what was the big deal?" To me, it's a place of being calm and really Zen-like. And yet, when they talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I feel like the top and the bottom kind of match right up at that point.
Oh, absolutely. The top one is like self-actualization. And
right.
For me, I'll tie that together. If it's security at the bottom and self-actualization at the top, this is my belief. We are absolutely God incarnate. We all are.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And so when they match, when you know who you are, that knowing just comes in automatically.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that all the time. If I get befuddled and my brain goes, bullshit crazy like it can with just, I don't know, I can't imagine so much can go through in such a short period of time. I'm just like, hey man, just give it up to your God within, and whatever, the right thing will come together. And it's just freaking remarkable. Without any effort, the less effort I put in, the less conscious effort I put in, the better things turn out. I mean, I don't know why, but when I trust that system, it works. When I try to force it, it never works. So.
Be still and know.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yes, I think that was who Jesus might have said that. Be still and know. Be still and know who you are. And just know. Yeah. It's so like, yeah, that's our mind. Our mind is just, it can be. That's why meditation is so absolutely needed.
Right.
Now more than ever, especially in a way that our society operates.
Right.
It needs to be multiple times a day, not just once. I mean, I find myself in the middle of the day getting kind of stressed out with work, and I'm like, you know what? I need to go and just clear my mind for a little bit. Just go get back to myself.
The movement is too. I mean, what you do in terms of movement, I think is, and we teach people. I use a stand-up desk only because I can't sit, not because I'm trying to get fit, but it turns out if I want to calm my brain, I either do, crossing the center line type of movements like you do when you walk, or I'll actually just stand on one foot and balance for a few seconds. And that just sort of seems to clear the brain. And I know you do a lot of things in your movement space, as you just move for a couple minutes, and it's almost as clearing as I think meditation can be sometimes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's all needed. It is all needed. One of my friends, I've said this before, I think on my podcast, he boxes, and he's like, I don't meditate, but if meditation gives me what my boxing does, the clearness and the focus, then I meditate. And I said, you absolutely do. Absolutely.
Have you heard about boxing? And because boxing is a major cross the center line activity. Have you heard about the boxing effect on people with Parkinson's disease?
No.
This was discovered by a trainer, and of course now academia is studying it like they had come up with it. But it was a trainer at some, place for older people, and he took them to the boxing gym one day, and these were people with Parkinson's disease. And people who haven't talked for 2 years after several sessions of boxing started talking. People in wheelchairs were standing up. And they're trying to figure out why this is, but just simple boxing motions, not the fact that you're pounding something, but just that simple motion. You know, if you're standing here now, if I'm hitting a heavy bag, I'm crossing the center line, my body's rotating with every strike. Incredible results. I mean, like almost curative type of results. And it's mind-blowing what it is. That's how simple it is. But it's just that crossing the center line motion that is causing these people to sort of neurologically rewire. And we actually have in what we do, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm bringing it back to me, but I'm reading a book now where you're not supposed to do that too often. So I'm conscious of it. When we balance train, you know, people will come in, they'll be neurologically screwed up. They'll have watched the news before they came in or had a bad business phone call or had a fight with a spouse or something like that. And we take them through what we call a neurological reset. And part of that is just taking the arms and the body and just crossing that center line, what's called ipsilateral movement. And, you know, lo and behold, things sort of neurologically get back into shape and they get back on their balance device and they do well. And I've had, you know, several really kind of, you know, left brain conservative type of clients I'll do this with, and they'll just look at me like they don't get it. And they'll just go, that's just freaking amazing. Because they go from crappy balance to good balance just by crossing that center line like you do with boxing.
Wow, I love that. You just made me just get so excited. I'm going to add some new things to my programs.
No, crossing the center line is hugely important.
Yeah.
It really is.
I do some things in it with more like it's more take the leg across the body, and it's more like a yoga plyometrics move, and it's hard. I'm exhausted afterwards. But yeah, I mean, now that's actually really amazing to know. I've had a bronze gold medalist podcaster on my show, Tony Jeffries, before, and he's got this boxing gym in California, and also programs for gyms as well. And it's just, you know, I was just sitting here thinking when you were talking about that, I want to like not work ever. I just want to do like different fitness programs every single day. You know, that'd be so amazing if that was part of our world. I'm gonna visualize that. Maybe I can make that true, at least for myself. You know, because
you have really too good a brain to do that. I hope you don't, because you use your brain and use your ability to talk and communicate, because you do a great job of that. So don't go crazy on that side. So.
No, I mean for like just changing things up and really just like working the body in a different way. Because after this phone call, it just makes me realize that we just truly need as much cross training as possible. I mean, yes, we have to work on our craft, but the cross training is so critical. Right. Yeah. So it is. That's what I'm thinking.
You got it.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners today?
No, I mean, just, you know, if they want to learn more, they can read the book. You know, I don't care. They can go to the website. Want to get educated, just think about balance, and just think about balance in ways that are, you know, what you do athletically. You know, a lot of balance training is standing on one foot, the other leg kicked in front of you. And that's never a position we're in any sport at any point in time. You're basically in mid-stride all the time. We're always on one foot or the other with the other foot kicked behind. So just think about balance. Think about taking your shoes off and feeling the ground. And, you know, the big toe is a big toe for a reason. Let it move and operate. You know, get out of your square space of your offices, put down your phones, go out into nature and activate that balance system, because the more you do, the better you're going to feel.
I love it. It's so true. I am so grateful for this conversation today. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. I learned a ton, and I'm sure that everybody listening did as well. I hope you did too.
Well, I enjoyed it. You took us into the weeds. There's no doubt about it, but it was fun.
Oh, man, that's awesome. One of my friends was telling me yesterday he picked weeds with his kids, and he's like, that's what life is all about. He's like, picking weeds. And I was like, that's great.
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, where can everybody find you? Where's your book?
Well, The book is Balance is Power. It's on Amazon. And anything Slackbow, Slackbow is us. That's where we are on social media, website, etc. And if they want to contact me directly, just jim@slackbow.com. And, I answer all emails. I'm really fascinated by what we do here. And I love it when people are enthusiastic like you about it. So I appreciate that very much.
Very good. I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Request for you. What I'm really interested in doing is getting our products, programs in the hands of our listeners. So what I would like to do with this podcast today is for anybody who's listening to be able to win something from today's show by sharing it and helping us spread the word. Do you have anything that you'd be willing to donate to offer to somebody who also wants to win something that we're talking about today?
Sure. I mean, I have a device called the Slack Block. It's a patented balance training device. It represents or replicates to a certain extent standing on a slack line. We have a patented protocol that goes with it. I'd love to contribute one of those and a book, Balance is Power. So, yeah. And I'm going to send an extra Slack Block for you so you can feel what it's like to get up there and challenge your balance the way we do.
I love it. Thank you so much. That is great. I cannot wait to do this, and I cannot wait for other people to really get word about what you do and also start to share this because it really, truly is important. And I think that this podcast today will really help people understand just how important it really is.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed it. It was a great interview. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, everybody, you heard it here at Figure Fit Life Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and we will be talking to you soon. Ciao.